I'm going to announce. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first master class of the season. Thank you for coming. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Ryan Meehan. He's the violinist of the Guillaume String Quartet, and he will be working with two of our students today. The very first student is Eyal Allen, who is a student of Kimberly Fischer. Eyal will be performing Violin Concerto in E minor, Opus 64, by Felix Mendelssohn, the first movement, Allegro molto appassionato.
I want to start out with maybe an unconventional question. What did you feel went really well in that performance?
I think I got a little more stable over time and started off a little shaky. So
Stay with the positive. Maybe something that you really liked. Like, what section did you feel this is really like who I am and I really brought my best in that moment?
Towards the end of the cadenza, I felt more.
I agree. Yes. Especially as you were going up for all these high things, you felt very, very confident. I could hear that. We could all hear that, and your sound was incredibly resonant. And I think I like to start from this place about what do we do well, because it's very easy to fixate on what are our mistakes, what are our flaws, and I think that can start to create maybe an unhealthy mental space when we go into performance. We have to kind of balance it. We have to know what to improve, but we also have to take confidence in what we're really good at and maybe build upon that even more. One of my very closest mentors said to me that you want your goal as a musician is to make your strengths as incredible as possible, like better than anybody else, so that they really, really shine. And what you perceive as your inadequacies or what you need to work on, you want to work on those so that only you know it. And to everybody else, it's a little bit of a mystery. So I want to start from this position of strength, and I want to talk about what you were doing really, really well in that moment to set yourself up that way. And it actually starts with a very physical kind of cue. Do you know what you were doing differently physically in those moments? You were standing up. Is this something you talk about with your teacher? Yes, okay. And so what are the types of things that you're working on in regard to your setup?
Like my shoulders back, kind of making sure everything is like it's a forward instead of like normal.
Yes, right. So we don't want to have a moving target. We all know that. But and I love a lot of what you're doing musically, and I think when we work on this from a position of strength, this thing about posture and sound and resonance, all the very, very beautiful characters that you're bringing out so well in this will be just kind of magnified. And that's what we need when we play a concerto, right? Because we're competing against an entire orchestra. So the kind of sound production that we have is imperative to getting our musical message across to our audience. So with posture, it starts right at the ground where we make contact. You guys can all stand up and we can try this together. So I know that this maybe doesn't apply to cellists, but if you were here for our master class last year, I think we talked a little bit about how to sit in a chair. So everybody lean forward onto your toes until you're on your tippy toes, and then back onto your heels. Yeah, it kind of feels uncomfortable. And then kind of try to settle into a middle ground where you feel balanced between the 4 points of your feet, the two in the front, the big toe and the little toe, and the two sides of your heel. And then you kind of find you can rock this way and this way until you find your center. From there, what's really important is that we maintain this physical contact with the ground in a way not to cut our upper body off from our lower body is through our knees. And this is a really big one. I find, especially for tall people like myself, that we tend to lock our knees without realizing it. So I'm not saying that you should be down and squat like this when you play, but having a slight bend to the knees, you can feel that already, like as if you were about to take a jump. We can all take a jump together. That moment, like right before you're going to take the jump, you see you can't really effectively jump very well with your knees locked. That's kind of what we need in order to feel really grounded into our feet and balanced, even if we move slightly side to side. Because side to side movement is sometimes very, very helpful. But going up and down, this is the one, I mean up is good, but the one going down is the one that really gets us, okay? So, and then from there, we're thinking about keeping our feet obviously underneath our shoulders. We all learned that from day one, but it bears reminder because I see a lot of this sometimes when my students are playing. And then you want to imagine to keep your spine as tall as possible. Opera singers talk about this a lot, that they want to think about sending the sound out of the top of their head. And you can almost think about that yourself too. That everybody's seen a marionette puppet before? Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. It's the puppet on the strings that you have the little thing up here and you move the arms. You can imagine that you're a marionette puppet, that your head is tied up like this, and that your arms, though they are, levitating, they feel grounded. You're hanging from the strings. This is really, really important for the sound production, and I think you got it, you accessed it in those moments by having the very good posture. Okay, along with all these body awareness things, what else is really crucial to, on a very basic level, to sound production? Yeah, what about the bow? What does the bow need to do?
Have a good contact.
What's a good contact point?
That depends on where you're playing, but for here it's a little bit closer to the bridge.
A little bit closer to the bridge. I had a teacher who told me, I had a teacher who told me once that this part right here, right before the bridge, this is called the money highway, because that's where all the soloists make their money. It's a simplistic way of looking at it, but it's quite true that if you look at those people who's like had the loudest sound you ever heard in a hall. Okay, yes, if you look at how tight his bow is, but also where he's playing on the violin, it's almost never from the middle towards the fingerboard. If, then you use tons of bow. But mainly, you want to try to make all the characters and sounds that you're aiming for by using the contact points from the middle to the bridge, and I would argue mostly by the bridge. What's a good way, anybody can answer this, what's a good way to really hold yourself accountable for your contact point when you practice? Anybody? Yeah?
Using a mirror?
Yes, using a mirror, bingo, exactly. So I actually practice a lot with looking at myself in the mirror while I play. At first, it's a little bit of coordination, kind of weird feeling for the coordination, but you get used to it after a while, and then you can really see, like your teacher sees in the lesson, what your bow is doing. And if you're really kind of dogmatic about it, like I need to keep this contact point as much as possible, and only have certain sections where you say, now I'm going to let it go a little bit, but you've made that decision, then you're going to set yourself up in a much better position to feel confident about all of your sound. Let's take another spot that I really liked that you played, and can you do it from here? Let's think about those things. Yeah, you can all sit down. Sorry. Yeah, from right there. Hey, can you tell the number? Or you can just play by yourself. It's fine.
Sorry, okay.
No, it's okay. Good. Now what if you try to keep your head really up? Instead of going like this, you really feel your spine long. And don't press too much on your chin rest. Good. Now when you go up for the shift, don't hold your breath. Can you feel like, because if I were to sing it, da-ya-da, I can't go da-ha-ha, doesn't sound right. I have to exhale a considerable amount of breath to get there. Can you exhale when you shift? Da-ya-da, and shift, not like you just have to get there, but shift with the rhythm of the music. So it's not di-ya-da, it's di-ya-da. You have more time than you think. body, upper body,
Okay.
up like this. Violin up. Violin up. Even more. Have you seen high fifths play before?
Sorry?
Have you seen high fifths play? Okay, imagine your high fifths for a second. Try it again. Okay, now high fifths with his knees slightly bent. Good, you held it until there, and then when you wanted diminuendo, you sunk back again. Okay, so this already shows me like exactly what the potential for your sound is, and it's incredible. It sounds really beautiful. I think we should give you a round of applause for it. I want to try the opening now, and I want to get the same quality of sound from the beginning. And it's not that it takes that much more effort. Actually, if you set yourself up in the right way physically, because I think you have a beautiful sound concept in your head. Sometimes that's what we have to work on. We have to try to imagine the sound a little bit, but that proves to me that you really have it. I want you to, Gil Shaham is a good example for you for the sound that you like. Okay, I want you to imagine your Gil Shaham with this great posture, and I want you to play the opening one more time. Forget that it says piano. Take piano with a grain of salt when you're playing a concerto. I want you to play with a sound that you think fills a room that is 5 times larger than this. It sounded infinitely better. What I got is a lot more, if I could give you a visual of it, it's like your sound before was about this, and then it became like this, much more dimensional. Very, very good. But I noticed one more thing, and this will help a lot with the sound production in general, is you don't really like this part of the bow. Yeah? Is there a reason why you avoid going to the frog? Okay, let's just, without me getting into all the mechanics of going to the frog, let's just see what happens if on your up bows, you really, especially da da ya da, because you definitely need a whole bow for all those da 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 da. Frog. You didn't quite make it to the frog. So the first one was excellent, and it made a big difference. But why should I obsess about the 2 inches here that he left out where a lot of people don't go all the way to the tip? Why is it important to practice going all the way to the extremities of the bow? Yes, and what does that do by using the full bow? In the same amount of time, you're using more hair. It's just like we're doing a math problem, kind of. You can have better because you have more what? Bow speed, right? The more bow speed and weight that you have, the more sound you can produce, right? So basically, we're kind of slowing our bow down when we don't necessarily mean to in order to avoid the extremities. Let's just see, can you do a caricature of like going all the way from the frog to the tip? Like maybe you even hit the ferrule once. We'll clap for that.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. This thing and then the other things that are even more important kind of went a little bit out the window. Let's talk a little bit about going to the frog, because I think it will be relevant to a lot of people in here, and to myself included, something I worked on a lot. What are the things you think about in order to make smooth bow changes at the frog?
Start earlier, or start when I'm already here, like think about.
Yes, I like how you're showing this up. So basically, you have a down bow setting, right? Basically it has flatter knuckles than on the up bow. But you start to transition early. That's right. What do you have to do with the hair? What part of the hair do you play on when you do the change?
A little bit more than all the hair. I don't know if that makes sense. Like this part more than this part, because on a bow, we go like that and then.
I would like you
Other
to
way
try actually the other way around. Because basically, think about the frog. The frog is the heaviest part of the bow. I like to think about violin technique in very kind of scientific terms, even though science is like my worst subject, because it helps to simplify things in my mind. I'm going to get more impact as I go towards the frog, right? But I want to minimize impact in order to make a smooth bow change, right? So I want to then, the only thing I can manipulate is the amount of hair that I use. So I actually rotate with my thumb towards the outside edge of the hair right before I go to the frog, but then I immediately turn back flat so that I can get that full sound that I want. You want to try just some open strings like that for a second? On the down bow, you want to stay on the side of the hair for the first split second. Think about your posture. Good, it's getting better. I think the best ones are when you really feel this relationship. This is what's so important when you're playing in the lower half of the bow, is that basically what is the only active finger is the pinky. And the pinky is holding the weight of the frog right here. So you essentially don't even need this finger at all to change. And what I see a lot of times is people get locked front-loaded like this. They come into the frog and they get this kind of crunchy sound because they haven't distributed their weight to the right part of the hand. So you can even just practice like holding the bow like this to get the feeling. I will catch your bow. Yeah, you can keep these bottom two fingers on, yeah, like these two. Yeah. Yeah, you see, you feel it here in this muscle? Okay, that's what you want to feel activated as you're coming into the frog. Try it again. And just go like back and forth. The more bow speed you use, kind of the easier it is. And just do it right on the side of the hair for now. Yes, and can you think more about the motion of the arm now? This is reflexive, meaning like these are passive. They're responding to the motion of the arm, rather than trying to manipulate the bow change with your fingers. So everybody can see, I'm thinking about pulling the weight from my arm and the motion from my forearm rather than, and the back of my arm rather than my fingers. There we go. Yeah. Now can you breathe out? And I want you to pull the slowest bow possible. So it sounds like this. But the key is that your arm feels so heavy. Not that I'm pushing down, but I'm hanging. Okay. And now if you add more speed. Good. So that's the other thing, is you don't want to feel like you're holding weight out. That you can really put all the weight in the string and you can carry it. So try to set the weight and then start these down bows. Shoulder down. Take your shoulder up. 1 minute. There we go. Yes. So I'm not joking. How old are you? Yeah, when I was 15 and 16, I studied with my most formative teacher, Almeida Vamos. I think she was here last year. And she had me do that for like 1 month exclusively. I was in front of the mirror doing this over and over again. But I'm so grateful for that, because think about how many times in a piece do we need to go to the lower half or go to the frog? Like dozens, hundreds maybe in a piece, thousands, millions over the course of our lifetime. If we can really refine the technique and the feeling of comfort to be able to go there, then it makes every time we go there in every piece that much better. Yeah, really, really wonderful playing. Thank you so much.
Performer is Noelle Streuber-Eden. Noelle performing the violin concerto in D minor, opus 35 by Korngold, the first movement Moderato Nobile.
shows that you really have a strong connection with the piece and you've had some experience with it. How many performances have you? First, okay, great. What I really like about your playing is that you look so organized, and it sounds very organized in a really, I mean that in a very good way. I never am worried if you're going to make this or that, and you always seem so in control. And I think that's, can you tell us a little bit about what you do to keep yourself so organized?
Well, I like mapping out my parts and like thinking, oh, this character is here, this character is there, and like thinking about how they transition to each other.
Mm-hmm. And even in your violin playing, what do you do on a daily basis to keep yourself so kind of fit?
Like technically?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like to do scales and like technique.
Mm-hmm. How much time do you spend on your scales and your technique every day?
Like 30 minutes.
Okay, very, very good. So, very, very important. Who practices scales every day? Good. I should see everyone's hands. There's a famous saying from Heifetz. I'm mentioning Heifetz again because in so many ways he's been unrivaled. That they asked Mr. Heifetz, how much do you practice scales every day? And he says, well, it depends how much time I have. They said, what if you have half an hour? Well, I practice scales for half an hour. Really? No pieces? No, no pieces. How about an hour? Just scales. How about 2 hours? Just scales. Only after 2 hours would he permit himself to work on any of his repertoire. Now, obviously, that's very extreme, and I realize a lot of you don't have the luxury of that amount of time to practice, to have 6 hours or a whole day to practice. But it just shows that a little bit of maintenance every day goes a long way to keeping your mind and body aligned. So really great job. Maybe to expand upon this sense of comfort I have as a listener, I wish that maybe sometimes it could be a little bit more daring, or maybe make me on the edge of my seat wondering, are you gonna make it? Are you gonna stick the landing?
Right.
And I think living right on that edge a little bit more is gonna make the performance and the expression heightened and more exciting. So, right from the beginning, I want you to play in a way that you feel maybe is like a caricature of how the opening should go. Like it's a little bit indecent in a way.
Okay.
Like the sound, the expression, just whoever you think is like the most over the top, just go for that. Okay, that was just extremely beautiful. Really, that was over the top? Do what's too much. That feels, actually it should feel uncomfortable in your body, and your brain and ears should go like, that's like not that great, it's too much. Okay. Okay, who thought that was indecent? Or that was gross? Who thought that was way more beautiful than the first time? Yes. So what happens is, what we are practicing all the time is the sound we're receiving from our ear, which is like a few inches from the F-holes. But what we're really should be practicing for is the person who is sitting here, or when I go to Carnegie, I don't pay the big money, so I sit in the nosebleed seats where I'm afraid I'm going to topple to my death because it's so high. We should be playing for those people because that's where the musicians sit. Anyway, so I think what we have to try to realize is the invisible box that we sometimes put ourselves in. And sometimes it's not so invisible. Our practice rooms, let's face it, they're not very big. So one way to kind of overcome this and get yourself in a concert mentality is try to imagine the largest space you've ever played on, even if it was an orchestra or wherever, and try to imagine that exit sign and the volume of air and space that you're trying to fill up. And that, without even saying you should go closer to the bridge, you just did it intrinsically because you know this stuff is what it takes. And you started to go there. And so for the melodic passages, I would definitely go in this direction. Now, in a kind of very straightforward nuts and bolts kind of way, I think you should try in the melodic passages to have continuous vibrato between the notes, unless you have an intentional reason. This one, I'm not going to do it because I want a source of tension, I want it to feel this specific color. But let's take for instance, can we go from da, 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 and can you really, I don't even want you to think technically, I want you in your inside ear, sing through the notes. Almost like, do you like to sing?
A little bit.
Okay, you can even, sometimes I like to advocate that you hum while you play, so that you have this sensation of vibration going through your body, and that helps to kind of keep your mind's eye on the connection between the notes. But why don't you just think about, how are you going to develop the long notes, and how are you going to develop the connection between the notes? Is it connecting upwards towards it? Is it receding towards it?
Okay.
What about the D? You shift on the D, but that's not a good reason not to vibrate it. Can you play it in first position? Da dee da da da. Yes, it should sound just like that, but you happen to have to shift. Okay.
Okay.
Such a big difference because there's not a color change suddenly on one note. So
Right.
then, whether we know why or not, even to the untrained ear, we perceive a longer line because the continuity of color or the development of color is more logical.
Right.
Very, very good. Okay, you're so quick. Let's do the top of the second page because it's everyone's favorite page, right? What I want you to think about this is I think that maybe you've practiced very, very well every single note, but I want you to think about how many notes are in one gesture. Go further a little bit. Okay. And then all of this, you're doing it kind of, I just want to maybe emphasize it a little bit more. Stay as close to the string as possible. The minimum amount of space you need between the notes in order to, play them. That's going to get you more body for each note. We're talking about you'll see, the infamous passage to the second page. Who's played cornhole? Anybody? Okay, well, it's a fun one. You should try it. Yep, from there.
Before that.
Huh?
It's okay, you can just start. I think she'll find it. Yes, can you try this passage like da 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 3/4 tempo, and I want you to play it all on the string. And like we were talking about with your colleague, to have as much weight in the string as possible. Like really, you won't play this in actuality like this, but as connected as possible, all the notes. Very good. You know what I really like about your bow hand is she has really flat knuckles. Why is that important? What do the knuckles function? How do they function on the bow hand? They serve as your flexibility and also your shock absorbers. So if you're coming from the air and your knuckles are up like this, guess what? You're going to get a crash. If I do the same thing with low knuckles, my shock absorbers, like on a car, are engaged. And that way I can get a smooth, round sound. This is something that everybody should try to think about. Basically, especially at the frog, but I would argue if you want a strong, really rich sound, all the way to the tip, try as much as you can to keep them engaged, and even on the way out. So you do that really well. What I want to take a step further is this sense of arm weight. How do you think about arm weight? How do you practice that?
I think of it as like gravity and not like pressure, but more like heaviness, like sinking in.
Exactly. So like a visual you could try to imagine is that you have this like round balloon and it is taking up the area here between your body and your arm, and you are resting your arm on that balloon, or like on a couch arm or something like that. And from this kind of point of resting, you're then pulling your arm weight this way or that way. Okay, so I want you to try this. Do it even slower if you want to. Da 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 dee, da, and you try to get it as weighty and resonant as possible. Even through the slur, I would argue, feel like you're pulling your arm weight all the way through the slur and the string crossing. Good. Okay, I love the sound now. I want you to try it a little bit faster. And now, in actuality, show us how much bow you're going to use. Can you play it in tempo once? Okay, you see how much bow you use per note? It's about this. So, very important, when you practice slowly, you must always play the same way you're going to play fast. Because if you're practicing slowly with tons of bow all of a sudden, that's not a calculation that's going to work when you go fast, right? So one thing you can all practice, and I think slow practice is one of the most misunderstood things, but you obviously know how to do it, is that you should play fast, even if it's a little bit rough, to figure out where in the bow am I going to make the sound, how much bow am I going to use, what kind of contact point, what kind of preparation do I need to do with my left hand, and then you slow it all down and make it better. Make it exactly the way you want to, and then you steadily build it up. But if you just start slowly and you get faster, we've all been there, right? You get to that top tempo and it still doesn't work because there's some variable that you've neglected. Okay, so I want you to use that same amount of bow that you use when you play it fast, but do it slow and thinking about the arm weight. Sorry, you play so great. I want you to think about when you cross the strings, lead with your elbow and really pull, especially on the moment of the string crossing. Like the sense of... Yes? Open with your body. Yes, okay. Let's take that much and let's try it in tempo. And I want you to just think about that sensation you had and nothing else, okay? Whatever happens to the articulation, we'll see what happens. Good. Now try it one more time. Good. Okay, so the separate notes sound great. What are the notes that you want to improve the sound quality?
Like the runs, because
The
it sounds
slurs.
kind of muddy.
Right. So I would like you to experiment with, can you play just the left hand of the slur by itself? And I want you to feel how lightly do you need to press the string in order to get the note, basically. And when you shift, it has to be, I think, a little bit lighter. And we want to hear, you can kind of feel like when you make a fist, you feel how, like, even if we can all take your hand out. See, when you put your hand out like this, your fingers are not like this, right? They naturally want to curve in. I think we have to access that when we play, when we have passage work, is try to think about your whole palm and how the fingers want to fall in towards the palm. So essentially they want to fall towards the fingerboard. Let them.
Okay. For the run?
Yeah, do the run by just left hand itself, the first one, and try to get really clear diction on all the notes, but with that sensation. Your shifting looks a little bit like you're thinking da-da-da-da-da-da.
Okay.
I want you to think that the whole arm is moving towards your ultimate goal note, and you happen to just shift along the way, but it's not like this, it's smooth. Da-da-da-da-da. That looks much better. Let's try it. How did that feel?
It felt smoother, but I think it can still be more clear.
What if you put a tiny accent on the front of the slur to get a really clear consonant sound at the beginning of it, and then swoop through it with the rest of the back of your arm?
Okay.
There we go. You can alternatively also play it down bow, by the way. You could practice it down bow. I think that sounds very good. So sometimes, and this is what everybody needs to kind of assess for themselves, is that when you have a fingering or bowing, your teacher may have even given it to you, and that's totally fine. But it doesn't mean that's the only thing that you should explore. If you're having trouble with a passage, if it's day 3, let's say, even I would say day 3, try to experiment what is another fingering that could work? What is another bowing that could work for this phrase? And in the process of doing that, you're actually making your brain more plastic. So so that when you go back to playing the original one you were practicing, it does feel easier, or you do hear it or feel it in a different way that's going to get you closer to your goal. But if we always stick with the same one that's still not working, we start to build in those little blocks that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. You get to that passage like, oh no, it's this one that's coming up. So yeah, you can always experiment with that. And so yeah, you can go through this whole page like that, and it makes you feel very confident for the articulation under pressure, that you feel this kind of weighted gravity. Because as soon as we start to think of the dots, what do the dots mean? What is the definition of a staccato? Everybody? Yeah, she came to our seminar, so she knows. Separation doesn't mean off the string, doesn't mean short. It doesn't, regardless of composer or era. If you think about it that way, what is separation then? It just means not that, not legato. The act of changing from down bow to up bow, that is separation, and it's on the string. So also exploring, the range of what dots can be. And I was just listening to Oistrakh yesterday, and I love Oistrakh, he's kind of my favorite. And I was noticing how none of his notes sound picky. No matter how fast he's playing, no matter how off the string he's trying to be, he always gets as much body to the note as rhythmically possible to fit within the rhythm that's written. And that's because he doesn't lift his bow that much. He makes the separation on the move close to the string. So it's something for all of us to think about.
1 minute.
1 minute, okay. Do you have any questions or any part that you would like to try again?
Just about the runs that we just
Yes.
How do I do that same thing with getting them in tempo? Because I think the reason why they're so muddy is because it's just so fast.
Yeah, so what I would suggest for you is not to always practice. In this case, we have how many notes in the slur? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can break that into 2 groups of 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if you practice in tempo just the first and the fourth note? Da-da-dee, da-da-dee, and you start to get the feeling of what is that? Feel like gesturally, da-da-dee. Because the problem actually is that sometimes we think about too much playing all the notes. But instead, we have to just let our kind of automatic nervous system go and have just some guide notes. So you want to try that one? I think, I'm just looking at this particular pattern. I think what might be actually most beneficial is dum-da-dee, that you shift on the D sharp, is that right? You shift from 4th finger to 1st finger? Oh, you shift there. Okay, so do all the shifting notes. Yes, and then da-dee-ba-dum, like with the gesture, da-dee-ba-dum, like for instance, instead of, it's that you going with it, da-dee, upward. Good, okay, and now add one more note, add the D sharp in the middle. Sorry, the F sharp. Good. Okay, and now just play it. Good, I think you need to connect more on the string crossing, from the F sharp to the B. Good. Okay, so it's you can, that's not the only way to go about it, but kind of find like what are the most opportune kind of goal notes that are going to guide you, rather than thinking da 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 da.
Right.
That kind of sometimes gets us hung up under pressure. Very good, wonderful. Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Meehan.
Thank
And
you.
one more round of applause. Thanks to our lovely performers, Noelle and
Yeah.
Eyal. You don't see Eyal now, but one more round of applause. Thank you so much for coming. I believe it's time for chamber groups and more orchestra rehearsals. So, bye. See you in a bit. Thank you. Hey, Eyal and Noelle. I'm going to turn off the light. Thank you.